The Western nations pledged to fund Uganda's development and construction of one of the largest oil pipelines. With a $5 billion budget, it was known as the East African Crude Oil Pipeline. The US was supposed to handle all the investments so that Tanzania, which has access to the Indian Ocean, could receive Uganda's crude oil. Uganda's economy may be boosted by billions of dollars if the crude oil were to reach the entire world. But Uganda took a step that the Western nations did not approve of. As anticipated, the Western nations indicated that they would halt the investment because they intended to use it as leverage in the future. It meant that the pipeline's construction would come to a total stop, eliminating any potential for Uganda to climb. China shocked the West by stepping up to support Uganda at that point. However, things are not quite as straightforward as it sounds. For what reason did the West halt the investment? What is the significance of this pipeline? Furthermore, why is China aiding Uganda? You will have a different perspective on China, Uganda, and Western nations after watching this video. Let's first clarify what the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, or EACOP, is. It will surprise you, we assure you. Initiated in 2013, the East African Crude Oil Pipeline, EACOP, sometimes referred to as the Uganda-Tanzania Crude Oil Pipeline, is a significant crude oil pipeline project. The foundation stone was laid in 2017 as a symbolic gesture, and the objective is unmistakable: transport crude oil from the Kingfisher and Talenga oil fields in Uganda to the port of Tonga in Tanzania, which is located directly on the Indian Ocean. The entire planet would then be supplied with this crude oil. Under the auspices of the China National Offshore Oil Corporation, Uganda is pursuing oil development, especially with Talenga, which is run by Total Energies and Kingfisher. In terms of ownership, Total Energies holds the largest stake, 65%, followed by Tanzania, 15%, Uganda's national oil firm, 15%, and NUC, 5%. The expense for this project has skyrocketed to $5 billion. Remarkably, Standard Bank and the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China replaced the 24 Western banks who chose to retreat. When this massive project is completed, it will become the longest electrically heated crude oil pipeline in the world. The EACOP was scheduled to begin in March 2016 near Lake Albert, in the western part of Uganda, in the Busaruka sub-county of the Hoima district. The Albertine Rift is traversed by the pipeline, traveling a staggering 110 kilometers, passing through the Rakai district of Uganda, arriving in Bukoba, Tanzania, circling the southern beaches of Lake Victoria, and concluding the celebration on the Chongoliani Peninsula close to the port of Tonga. Located directly on the border between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Kingfisher oil field was found in 2006 on the eastern shore of Lake Albert. The Talenga oil fields are located in the districts of Bulisa and Nuwaya, northeast of Kingfisher. Together with Sinuk and Unok, Total Energies is leading this market with a 56.6% stake. Their scheme? Drill over 400 wells from 31 locations and develop 6 fields, including one smack in the midst of Murchison Falls National Park. When December 2021 arrives, when the East African Crude Oil Pipeline Special Provisions Bill is approved by the Ugandan Parliament, setting the course for Uganda's participation in the estimated $3.5 billion EACOP building, operation, and maintenance project. $130 million of Uganda's $293 million investment is already in the bank. Tanzania passed its bill in August 2021, using a similar card. As of March 2016, building was scheduled to begin in August 2016, with a $4 billion budget and a 3-year timescale. It was anticipated that this significant investment would provide 1,000 to 2,000 permanent jobs, in addition to about 15,000 construction jobs. Total E&P was willing to pay a substantial $4 billion to finance the development of the EACOP, according to the Daily Monitor newspaper. By July 2016, it was announced that construction of the 1,143-kilometer pipeline would begin in January 2017 after high-level talks in Yuma chaired by Tanzania's and Uganda's oil ministers. The project's overall goal was to be finished by 2020, but by August 2017, the 1,145-kilometer pipeline's construction budget had been reduced to $3.5 billion. Now, in September 2020, and Total Energies inked a host government agreement with the Ugandan government, opening the door for the ultimate investment decision before the end of the year. It was anticipated that the pipeline's construction would start in the first quarter of 2021. Presidents Museveni of Uganda and Suluhu of Tanzania, along with important figures like Chanzo Bio of CNUC Uganda and Patrick Pine of Total Energies, signed important agreements in April 2021. Construction was expected to commence in July 2021, with the first oil anticipated in 2025. With $2 billion set aside for equity investment from the pipeline owners and the remaining $3 billion to be obtained from outside sources, the project's total costs skyrocketed to $5 billion in August 2021. You know, the East African crude oil pipeline is a huge undertaking that has the potential to completely change Uganda's economic environment, to improve its reputation in the world energy market. With a total length of 1,243 kilometers, this ambitious project aims to deliver crude oil from the rich Albertine Rift Valley of Uganda to the vital port of Tanga in Tanzania on the Indian Ocean. The EACOP serves as more than just an oil conduit. For Uganda, it represents an array of economic success. Through royalties and taxes, the pipeline is anticipated to bring in a sizable sum of money, which might help lift the nation's ongoing poverty burdens and usher in a new period of prosperity. Another significant advantage of the EACOP for Uganda is the creation of jobs. It is expected that the pipeline's construction and operation, as well as the nearby oil resources, will spur a boom in job prospects, especially in rural areas, would encourage the transfer of talents and the development of human capital, in addition to strengthening the economy. The EACOP also holds the potential to diversify Uganda's economy, which is now mainly based on agriculture. By establishing the oil business, the nation's economy would gain a new dimension and become less vulnerable to changes in the agriculture sector. The economy's stability and resilience would be improved by this diversification. The EACOP is also tied to the possibility of energy security. Uganda is currently highly dependent on imported oil, making it susceptible to changes in the price of oil globally and interruptions in supply. By enabling Uganda to produce its own oil, the pipeline would promote energy independence and lessen dependency on outside supplies. This is because the pipeline would provide Uganda with an oil refinery that would supply enough oil for the nation's needs. The nation would save money and have a more reliable energy supply as a result of this increased independence. Additionally, the EACOP has the potential to improve Tanzanian-Uganda regional collaboration. Deeper connections would be forged between the two countries connected by the pipeline's construction and operation, encouraging cooperation in infrastructure development, trade, and security. This enhanced cooperation might pave the path for increased economic integration and shared prosperity. However, you should first understand how the West attempted to take advantage of the pipeline and made false promises before learning how China has salvaged it. Western countries, particularly the United States, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, showed a great deal of interest in the pipeline at first. The project received financial support from Western nations in the form of grants and loans. For example, the EACOP was developed with the help of a $325 million loan from France's development agency. Furthermore, the Western nations promised to provide guarantees and insurance in order to reduce the financial risks connected to the EACOP initiative. For example, MIGR, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency of the World Bank, has offered political risk insurance, protecting investors from possible losses brought on by unanticipated events or political instability. The Western nations halted their investments in spite of this insurance. More information will be available soon. Western nations made fictitious pledges and elevated them to a fantastical level by pledging to lend their knowledge to aid in the creation and execution of the EACOP project. For example, the UK government pledged to offer the Ugandan government technical support with an emphasis on social and environmental protections to reduce the project's adverse effects. At first, the West intended to invest in order to take advantage of the pipeline. Western nations looking to diversify their energy supplies and lessen their reliance on Middle Eastern oil were drawn to the EACOP project's potential to uncover additional oil deposits in Uganda. For Western countries, having access to these reserves might have improved stability and energy security. Add your voice to the total liberation of Africa by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more informative videos like this one. Let's proceed. The EACOP initiative also provided Tanzania and Uganda, the two main participating countries, with economic growth and development. It was anticipated that the pipeline's construction and operation would increase government revenue, create job opportunities, and encourage investment in a number of economic sectors, promoting the region's general economic prosperity. At that point, Uganda was deceived by the Western nations. In order to move crude oil from Uganda's Albertine Rift Valley to the Tanzanian port of Tanga on the Indian Ocean, the East African crude oil pipeline was first envisioned as a groundbreaking infrastructural project. The United Kingdom, France, and Germany were among the Western nations interested in this huge project. But in the end, these countries decided to stop providing financial help, even if they had first shown interest. This came after extensive propaganda regarding the pipeline was disseminated. The possible environmental effects of the EACOP project were the main focus of Western nations' propaganda. Concerns regarding deforestation, habitat loss, and disturbance of wildlife corridors are raised by the pipeline's path through delicate habitats such as forests and wetlands. Environmentalists warn that by releasing greenhouse gases linked to transportation and oil extraction, the project could worsen climate change, damage endangered species, and reduce biodiversity. Concerns regarding the social effects of the EACOP project, specifically the possible uprooting of communities along the pipeline's path, were also voiced by Western nations. However, this was also part of the propaganda to stop the investment and make sure Uganda didn't build the pipeline themselves. As a result, the West assigned international environmental organizations the responsibility of making the project infamous. The ultimate objective was to prevent Uganda from ever benefiting from the pipeline by making its development impossible. Western nations considered the EACOP project's financial dangers in addition to its environmental and social implications. Political unrest in the area, possible cost overruns, and changes in the price of oil globally made the project a high-risk investment. These elements sparked concerns about the project's financial sustainability and investors' ability to recover their capital. The argument put out was that the pipeline was detrimental to the environment of the nation. The question of why Western nations began a project they believed to be environmentally damaging ought to have been raised. Most importantly, it exposed Western hypocrisy, failing concern for the environment while disregarding the needs of the Ugandan people, who depended on the pipeline to enhance their standard of living. A combination of financial, social, and environmental issues led to Western nations' decision to withdraw their financial backing for the East African crude oil pipeline project. These issues were frequently raised in a manner that minimized the project's possible advantages while emphasizing its drawbacks. The selective criticism of EACOP is called into doubt by the fact that there are other pipelines in the world, including those in Western nations. Why doesn't the International Environment Organization condemn and call for the closure of all oil pipelines in the United States if they are bad for the environment. The reason for this is because Western nations have maintained these groups as pawns to defame African nations' programs. However, China has intervened to keep the pipeline intact. Following the withdrawal of Western financiers due to significant objections from environmental groups, China has indicated that it will provide more than half of the $3 billion in debt that Uganda needs to build a crude oil pipeline. The East African country hopes to conclude talks with the China Export and Credit Insurance Corporation and the Export-Import Bank of China, according to Uganda's Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. Sinosure, the Chinese state-owned export credit insurance provider, is working with Exim Bank to finance the pipeline, accounting for the majority, more than half of the debt, according to Irene Bati, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry. You should be aware that the pipeline would cost Uganda almost $5 billion, extending from the oil resources of Lake Albert to a loading and storage facility at the Tanzanian port of Tanga. With $3 billion secured as debt and the remaining $2 billion to be financed by shareholder equity contributions, the financing is set up at a 60-40 debt-to-equity ratio. The pipeline is 62% owned by Total Energies, 15% by Tanzania Petroleum Development Corporation and Uganda National Oil Company, and 8% by China National Offshore Oil Corporation, the country's largest oil company. Crude oil from Uganda's Lake Albert oil fields in northwest Uganda will be transported via the 1,443-kilometer pipeline to Tonga, Tanzania, on the Indian Ocean. From there, it will be exported to international markets. Batibi stated that Uganda expects to obtain finance from Saudi Arabia's Islamic Development Bank, as well as many African institutions in addition to the Chinese lenders, the African Export-Import Bank, among others. Although Uganda acknowledged that certain Western banks had stopped funding the project, it always considered its other allies. Only the year before, though, did the partners announce a final investment decision of $10 billion for the project, which included building the pipeline and developing the oil field to transport crude oil extracted from Hoima in western Uganda. SANAC is in charge of the Kingfisher oil field, which is located in Uganda on the eastern banks of Lake Albert. The oil field will be developed for an estimated $2.3 billion, with a daily peak production target of 40,000 barrels. The French oil company Total Energies is in charge of the larger Telenga oil field, which is reported to have cost between $4 billion and $6 billion to develop. A daily production of 190,000 barrels is expected. Drilling for Kingfisher and Telenga's development and production wells started in January and June of 2023, respectively. By 2025, the East African landlocked country hopes to start exporting oil. The Industrial and Commercial Bank of China and Standard Bank of South Africa are serving as ECOP's primary debt arrangers and financial consultants. As stated by Banktract, a group that monitors, advocates for, and assists NGOs with regard to banks and the activities they fund. Uncertain if it still acts as one of the debt arrangers and consultants, Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation also declined to finance the project. Last year, the matter made its way to the European Parliament, where lawmakers passed a resolution calling for the project to be stopped because of human rights and environmental concerns. Additionally, they advised Total Energies not to back the initiative. Given that Western governments, especially European ones, had previously offered insurance against the political risks connected with the project, this scenario emphasizes the irony of the European Parliament's rejection to the East African crude oil pipeline proposal. It is important to note here the hypocrisy of the West. The European Parliament skillfully employed the environmental justification to halt investment, as the insurance was provided regarding political circumstances. This demonstrates the extent to which Western nations may engage in deception, manipulation, and double-dealing. Uganda claims that this strategy ignores the big picture in response to Western nations' demands that it scrap its oil intentions. That will be extremely unjust, said Iron Batib. An equitable energy transition will no longer exist. An unfair energy transition will occur. She also emphasized the necessity for a financial plan for the shift, saying Uganda thinks the oil and gas industry can coexist with its goals for renewable energy. Furthermore, why doesn't the US stop selling oil and LNG to Europe and the rest of the globe, which generates billions of dollars for the US, if these resources are bad for the environment? The solution is hypocrisy. Last year, the Chinese embassy in Uganda defended Uganda's initiatives and denounced the European Union for trying to sabotage the country's oil ambitions. Zhang Lisong, the Chinese ambassador to Uganda, said the EU shouldn't halt the development of the oil resources and the pipeline on the grounds of human rights and environmental concerns. However, why did the West halt investment? In other words, it was a form of retribution for Uganda's acts. Deborah Malik, the US ambassador to Uganda, was ousted by Uganda in 2021 on charges of meddling in domestic matters. Malik was charged by the Ugandan government with making provocative remarks and acting in ways that were inappropriate for a foreign diplomat. Furthermore, Uganda halted cooperation with the European Union in 2022 as a result of penalties brought about by violations of human rights. The EU was chastised by the Ugandan administration for its hypocrisy and meddling in domestic matters. Uganda's military collaborating with Russia, which was seen as a rejection of the West, was the final nail in the coffin. Training, cooperative exercises, and the sharing of military hardware are all covered under the agreement. Even Uganda used its independence and authority to criticize Western nations and international forums more frequently, accusing them of neocolonialism and hypocrisy. In his speech to the UN General Assembly in 2022, for example, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni charged that the West was taking advantage of Africa and forcing its agenda on the region. Rumor has been raised by these acts that Uganda is moving closer to China and Russia, and away from its long-standing partnership with the West. However, it is common for the West to anticipate subordination, particularly from African nations. The West opted to halt the investment because it was afraid the pipeline would make Uganda bold when it rebelled. What are your thoughts? Can Uganda rely on China as a partner? After the pipeline is built, should Uganda punish Western nations by not selling its crude oil to them? Do you think this pipeline will help Uganda become one of the most developed nations in the world? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.